This is the story of two wintering Baltimore Orioles. A mature male with iconic Oriole coloring and markings, and an adolescent. In November 2022, I looked out the kitchen window and saw what appeared to be an unusual bird for that time of year. I took a photograph and reported it in the eBird Cornell Lab application. The monitor of the eBird list told me it was a juvenile Baltimore Oriole, rare in Rhode Island in the winter. I began to take more photos and videos to document its growth, but I must say, I was extremely worried the poor little bird wouldn't survive the winter. I was overwhelmed with gratitude when I saw him after those 3 brutal 9-degree days. I decided to call our visitor Junior. He came to the Sunflower Niger feeder every day. He often had company on the feeder. Sometimes he was shy and flew away when other birds were on the feeders, and other times he stood his ground and pecked at the annoying birds. I guess it's possible that Junior was one of the offsprings of the summer, but there's really no way to tell. With the new visitor, I decided to put the jelly and orange feeder up again, and he came every day for the seeds and the jelly. However, once I started soaking the mealworms in hot water for about an hour, draining them and adding them to the feeder, he ate them each day and rarely ate the seeds again. In February 2023, much to our surprise, another Oriole arrived in our backyard, a male adult. I called him Senior. For the first time in my 7 years of feeding backyard Orioles in the summer, I enjoyed the bright orange and black among the plumes of April. We have no idea if this was one of our summer guests or an adult from some other location. Junior will sometimes put up with having him around, but in general, he's claimed our yard as his own. We've watched him change his behavior and appearance from having female coloring to looking more and more like the adult male Oriole he is today, the striking orange and black. The starlings and the sparrows are a real nuisance and try to hog the mealworm feeders. So I see Junior in the tree and I'll step outside to the deck. The starlings and sparrows fly off and Junior comes down to eat his fill. I guess he knows and trusts me. At least that's what it feels like to me. Honestly, I love birds and have been observing and feeding them for years. But I must say, I feel a special bond with this fellow. I hope he finds a mate this coming spring and chooses our yard to introduce his offspring to life.
My name is Liam Corcoran. We're here at Tillinghast Pond Management Area. As part of our URI Woodcock project, we're here capturing birds to put transmitters on them to hopefully track their movements in the state of Rhode Island. So our focal species is American woodcock. We're focusing on other species as well that utilize early successional habitat. That's why we're here in this shrubland at Tillinghast Pond Management Area. And we are capturing birds both at night and in the morning. We're focusing on woodcock whippoorwills, which are nocturnal species, and songbirds, which are dawn and during the day. So in order to catch the birds, we have to set up these things called mist nets. It's a big net that in the early morning hours basically is invisible to the naked eye to both humans and birds. And once we get them in the net, we can then extract them and bring them back to process them, put bands on them, and place transmitters on them so that we can track their movements at this site. So the reason we're focusing on tracking the movements of the birds is to get at how they're utilizing this habitat. If we track a bird and we get a location on it, every minute or so, we can see what it does throughout the entire day. We can see what types of habitat it's using throughout this site, and then we can better understand what birds specifically need, and we can inform management that way.
2023 was another splendid year of backyard bird watching. Perhaps more than ever, we have paid attention to the behavior of all the birds. I came to the conclusion that the juncos are my favorite winter birds to watch. They seem to get together so well, with adequate patience and a unique set of environmental circumstances with which they can be seen prominently kicking up snow, dirt, or leaf to gain access to seeds underneath. But the chickadees are our favorite birds to watch year-round, as they don't migrate north in summer like the juncos do. They are small, but their reputations as highly intelligent and fiercely capable of self-preservation is a bit lost in our somewhat artificial space of plenty. Chickadees are such graceful flyers, cutting beautiful waves in the air that look very capable of evading predators. A pair created another downy, soft nest inside a birdhouse, which was surprising because we only saw them actively building in spring. We were surprised to find 13 eggs inside the nest. 13 is the rare upper limit on the number of eggs. We will never know what happened to the eggs to go uncared for. A pair of Carolina wren frequented our feeders more often than in 2022. They are wonderfully vocal, vying for most likely to be heard singing with the chickadees. We enjoy hearing one sing, "Germany, Germany, Germany," although they have many other three-peat songs with variation on that theme. One remarkable behavior a Carolina wren expressed was the ability to be completely still. We saw this when a red-tailed hawk caught a wren off guard. The video of the wren that day suggests a still image, and yet you can see the wren blink an eye at one point in the video. Our resident lady cardinal is our queen of birds. We enjoyed meeting her two babies in 2023, which she fed conscientiously. She works hard at the safflower, which appears to be a favorite food. She can be seen late in the afternoon alone on the feeder, or with a male that appears to be her mate. The male cardinal, with his red feathers glowing in low sunlight. Sticking with the show of colors, 4 resident blue jays come to feed regularly. They prefer peanuts, walnuts, and the mealworms being eaten here. Their one baby became independent quickly and mimicked the best feeding behaviors of adults after watching them. The jays are vocal in the early morning when they see us bringing out new food. The third primary pigment color is represented well by the goldfinch, who prefer our Niger thistle seed under cover of tree canopy. They fly in waves like our chickadees, so we appreciate the flashes of yellow that differentiate them. The little peep peep peeps of the babies when they're hungry warmed our hearts. The males lose their yellow coloring at times during the year when they look more like the female goldfinches. 2023 brought us much more contact time with the hummingbirds. Their behavior is so unique that at times we think of them as being other than birds. We spent a lot of time reading about them and investigating all the species around the world. Our knowledge of preferred habitat grew to one where we felt rewarded for the time of study. At least 3 different hummingbirds visited us during late June, July, August, and early September. Notes we had read about their fabulous memories played out in front of our eyes as they efficiently got pollen from those flowers that were most in season with a bounty of nourishment. Filming hummingbirds is difficult, but the footage here is quite satisfying. It took us a while to get used to the weight of a new zoom lens, and we have yet to find a tripod that can wear its weight. As a result, all of our footage in this video comes from handheld cameras, with thanks for post-processing stabilization features in the software we used to put the videos together. A nuthatch came by to feed regularly throughout 2023, and there were 2 visible at the same time on occasion. They spent so much time upside down, which makes it easy to identify them, even though they have the black, white, and gray coloring of many of the birds that visit. Another year of trying to capture a tufted titmouse on camera provided similar frustrations. They don't stand still anywhere in our yard and flit to the feeders and away every time they want to feed. I've slowed down the footage to 40% the speed of real time, but one clip at 80% since the tufted titmouse stayed in frame slightly longer than usual. 2023 brought downy and hairy woodpeckers daily. We appreciate the peck 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 of their kind as unique to all the birds of their size. They are very adept at feeding off the suet feeder that requires they hang on the underside. The female downy woodpecker often spent time pecking at bark for bugs. The downies and hairies seem to eat everything that hangs off the ground. Here we see a baby starling checking out a baby robin that claimed the spot often when waiting for food. The 2023 baby season was impressive, even without the 3 chickadee babies of 2022 or the Oriole babies of 2022 when we had 5. Mama Robin fed her baby here many, many times. To our delight, the baby made the cutest calls when Mama got near with a mouthful of worms. This starling is a beautiful specimen, but the overall behavior of the starlings is quite aggressive, which they practice with each other most. They often fling the mealworms around as they feed on them. The mourning doves grew in number from 4 after the hawk activity during the winter of 22-23 to 20 by 2023's end. They get along impressively well and rarely interact with other birds. We love their morning call. The most aggressive bird was a male mockingbird who flew about in our backyard for 6 weeks, chasing all birds when they tried to feed. He could prevent all birds from feeding for 2 hours at a time, even with so many feeders out. He did not sing for us. We were happy when we imagined him heading out to find a mate. He did not return with nor without. A red-bellied woodpecker represented the largest pecker as well, even with similar coloring in places to the downies and the hairies. He seemed to like the vertical suet feeder we added to the collection. But a pair of northern flickers really stole the show by coming 4 times a day all autumn and into winter. They love to feed on suet and spend time with the safflower and niger as well. The male and female look similar, but the male has a black mustache that distinguishes him. Our heated bird bath is close to our house and often provides the biggest smile on our faces. Birds take splash baths in it or come to bob their heads in to drink. There's often a lineup waiting a turn, although the sparrows and starlings are the first to try and jump the line. We'd like to attract cedar waxwings to our property, as was reinforced by seeing 4 of them feeding on winterberry during a tour of Prudence Island in November. We conclude with imagery of 2 coyotes that pass through the opening in the fence between us and the neighbors to the north. A good apex predator keeps the natural world at its best for birds.
I've been tracking the butterflies in our yard for a few years now, and in 2022 I saw a skipper that I hadn't seen before. At first, I used to keep handwritten lists of the butterflies that I saw. Then, during the pandemic, I built an app that automates the process. It logs the species, what it was doing, where it was doing it, and so forth. Yeah, it's a little crazy. I remember the day I first became aware of skippers. I was a little surprised that they were considered butterflies. They really seem to be their own thing, small, furry. I have a lot of trouble identifying them and make a bunch of mistakes, and then I find myself going back and revising the lists. To make it even more challenging, climate change is affecting the distribution of butterflies. Warm weather species follow the warm weather, and some of these newcomers can even survive our warmer winters. The field guides and checklists can't always keep up. I think that's why I got so into skippers. They're tricky to identify. It's like cracking code. For example, these are different species. These are the same. But these are different. Over the years, about a dozen or so skippers have passed through the yard. Some just once, some come in groups or kaleidoscopes. Our yard is a small pesticide and fertilizer-free garden in suburban Cranston, Rhode Island. It's my wife's oasis. Her job is the design and maintenance of the garden. My job is to look as weird as possible as I spend my free time stalking the butterflies in it. If the neighbors ask about it, I just lie and tell them I'm a scientist. That gives me a little leeway. Then people are like, so that's why he's running around the yard in his underwear with a camera. The garden is planted in islands surrounded by what's left of our shaggy lawn, made up of clover, fescue, and a lot of crabgrass. It was September 4, 2022, and a yellow skipper was perched on a flower, a mystery skipper. Then we saw 9 more, and took a bunch of photos, and field guides later on suggested that it was a Sachem, a southern skipper and frequent migrant to southern New England. Today is September 4, 2023, exactly a year since the first sighting of the Sachems. A small colony set up camp in the yard back in July, and this week an even larger group of Sachems has arrived at the garden. Watching the Sachems is like watching a rowdy bar scene. They do a lot of 3 things: drinking, fighting, and looking for mates. Here's a male Sachem, has dark, hyphen-shaped marks when it opens its wings. The males hang out on their flower bar stools. They're protective of their spaces, fending off anything that approaches, other butterflies, bees, people. On more than one occasion, I watched a Sachem chase a hummingbird out of the yard. When couples meet, there's a whole lot of fluttering. This is a female, darker than the male, with a pattern of white squares on the underwings. They seek out various types of grasses to lay their eggs. Sachems really only appear to take breaks during the hottest time of day, when you might catch one resting on a leaf. You can see why Sachems can be so difficult to ID. Some are fresh, maybe the offspring of Sachems who visited earlier in the summer, but many are faded and worn, probably traveled hundreds of miles to party out the last days of their short lives. In the spring, we didn't see any fresh Sachems in the yard, which suggests that they didn't survive the winter here. I'm still wondering about some of the most basic questions about these insects. Like, where do they sleep? And will this colony produce a generation that survives next winter? For that answer, I guess we'll have to wait for spring.
By October, the only flowers remaining in my backyard were asters. This video will show you some of the critters I saw on these asters by the Petaquamsket River, also known as the Narrow River. This area is the ancestral and current home of the Narragansett people. The most plentiful critters that I observed were male, common eastern bumblebees. There were dozens of them. You'll see them throughout the video alongside other critters. I only observed one female worker common eastern bumblebee. They're more active in the spring and summer. I love these common drone flies. This yellow jacket was very interested in my boot. This European potter wasp is so fast that I had to slow the video down to be able to see it. Many thanks to Catherine Galley and Casey Johnson for their help identifying critters. And thanks to you for watching my video.
These turtles are tough to find, as we've explored today. Even with having them tagged and the ability to track them, they blend in very well with their environment. You know, they call them wood turtles for a reason, and they really do just kind of blend right in and look like a piece of wood. Currently, I'm a wood turtle biologist, so I'm out here studying the spatial ecology of wood turtles and their fine-scale movements.
Oh. There you go. Oh, it's a big fella.
So cool.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Science. Wood turtles are a species that's native to Rhode Island. They've been on our landscape since glaciers retreated 10 to 15,000 years ago. They have this really distinct shell. They're a really beautiful species. In the front of their body, they have these beautiful bright orange scales. When you encounter one, it's a really cool thing. As of a few years ago, we didn't know a lot about where wood turtles were in the state. We invested a lot of time and energy into looking for wood turtles throughout Rhode Island in a systematic way, and all the data confirmed to us that they are in fact rare on the landscape and that they require our conservation attention and protection.
The turtles out here are attached with VHF tags and GPS geolocator tags. So we use these VHF tags to track the turtles to their current location. And we have these GPS tags attached to them that's constantly collecting geolocational data and temperature data. And it gives us like an inside look at how these turtles are using the landscape over time.
They should teach a whole course on the art of the tag. They're always different.
So this is the second year that we've been coming out here, and it seems that wood turtles are creatures of repetition. They come to the same spots year after year, season after season. And it's really cool to see and compare the results of last year's data.
Yeah, this one was out, but it was kind of moving. I don't know if it was actually moving. Oh, that is cold.
Good form.
Thank you.
Jesus, man, it's nice to see the little ones like that. Any notches?
Yes, actually.
She had it down as
Yeah.
09R11, yeah, August 24. The wood turtles are important in the ecosystem as seed dispersers. You know, they're a kind of an iconic New England species. You know, we'd like to see them on the landscape. The wood turtle is a serious species of conservation concern here in Rhode Island, and one that's threatened throughout its range, even a candidate for federal listing. They face a lot of pressure between habitat loss, habitat fragmentation. Road mortality is big for not only wood turtles, but all species of turtles, especially during nesting season. And now this new added pressure, which is becoming unprecedented, and that's poaching. We're seeing thousands of North American turtles poached in any given year, all being shipped overseas for overseas markets, either for the illegal pet trade or for food animals. It's a serious problem.
Yeah, I remember that.
Not many of them survive to adulthood. And if they do survive to adulthood, that takes a really long time.
Wearing on something.
How old do you think this guy is?
19, 18 or 19. It's a pretty one, man, with the orange specks on the plaster.
These are not domesticated animals. These are wild animals. These are native wildlife, and they belong in the wild. Studies like this will allow us kind of more fine grain to learn about specific populations and determine strategies for protecting individual populations.
No injuries. Healthy.
72 length. This research is going to help us better understand our populations of wood turtles throughout Rhode Island. We'll be able to look at habitat use, look at population dynamics, and be able to identify key nesting sites, sites where we might be seeing road mortality.
Hi.
We've learned so much about the species just in a year. We're really looking forward to this year's data and what it's going to tell us, so we can hopefully come up with a conservation plan that'll protect the species into the future.
Can you grab the turtles for me? Thank you.
After 10 years of filming the wildlife in the North Burial Ground, I'd never seen coyote pups. I used to only see coyotes occasionally, but 2023 upended it all. I kind of knew the mom was pregnant and maybe had already had the pups, but here it is on May 8th, just before dark, and I got to see a bunch of the pups playing. A couple of days later, the mom is nursing pups right in front of the den. If you look at this in a big screen, you might actually see them. They're all underneath her kind of messing around, but they're definitely suckling. A few days on, there's still all 7 pups around, and they're out playing. That drain pipe made an amazingly good den. I don't think it connects to anything, so it doesn't really get very wet in there. So, you know, it's pretty cool to be watching all the pups come out to play. At this point, the pups were so visible that everybody was coming out to watch them, and I think it was starting to get to the adults and get them really nervous. So they moved the den. I don't know where, but we didn't see any pups again for at least a month, and by that time there were a lot fewer. You know, nobody knows what happened to all the pups. But, you know, coyote pups, if they had 7 pups and they all lived, you know, it would overpopulate the state really quickly. So at this point, there's only a couple, maybe 3 pups. And that's the way it went all summer, where you get to see 2 of them. Another month later, and they're starting to travel by themselves a lot more. I think that one's near one of the places they eventually moved the den to. And here's one of the first times you see one of the pups away from any of the dens, all by itself. The adult male is a lot bigger than everybody else and has kind of funny ears. The pups kind of have intermediate ears compared to the male and the female. Anyways, the male was just as affectionate with the pup and groomed them just as much as the female, at least in the video I got this year. Like any mammals that hunt a lot and use a lot of energy, coyotes do a lot of resting. Here, the mom coyote right there in the center is resting, and so is one of the pups, and now the other pup has come over and lay down. By this time, there were only 2 pups for sure, and I named them Thin White and Wide White, depending on the white markings on their face. You'd see the coyotes a lot, but you didn't see them every day, and sometimes you wouldn't see them for a few weeks. The male was lying down, the female went by, and then one of the best pictures I got of the pups, the 2 pups, Thin White and Wide White, were coming up the road. I think they saw me and stopped, trying to figure out what to do. Wide White is on the right there, Thin White is on the left, and they just kind of looked at me for a while. And eventually they kind of moved on, and there's a little hill between me and where the pup is, and they kind of go off to the left there and go right by the adult male, and then just keep on going. One of the things I noticed is coyote pups seem to have as much trouble with their mom cleaning them as human kids do. I especially liked watching them, like when they clean their ears, you know, the way a kid will like kind of recoil from it. Coyote pups seem to do the same thing. But here we go. We've got the male with the pup, and we're going to end on this because we needed to keep it to 7 minutes for the video festival. But it's been such a great year watching the coyote pups.
There's the black crown right here.